Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here, and in this video we are going to be taking a look at the letter from the producer live. What number is this? Number 72? Yeah, we're going to be doing an overview on that, and it was a pretty good live letter. I was pretty impressed with it, and they kept it pretty tight. There's one section in the middle that kind of went on long, and honestly I kind of wish they hadn't spent so much time on it, that in regards to Island Sanctuary, but I'll talk about that when we get to the respective parts. As per usual, you're using the unofficial translations from the Final Fantasy XIV Reddit Discord, so thank you to Miyuna and Iluna Minori for their work as per usual. But bear in mind, as it is unofficial and it is done pretty much on the spot, there are things that might not be present, might be missed, might be slightly mistranslated. They always have their own kind of disclaimer for this stuff, as it's not coming from an official source. So please keep an eye out for the official sources as well to see if there's any new information or clarifications on things that we talk about in this video. I'll probably do a video on that as well. Anyway, live letter started with the trailer. I'm going to post the first reaction to the trailer that I saw. I accidentally call Steps of Faith Final Steps of Faith like 4 times, but that's perfectly okay. And I'm going to do a reaction to the English trailer and a breakdown of the English trailer when I get a chance. Haven't watched it yet, but just a bunch of pictures of it. We're not going to spend much time on this. We see, we see Estinian being Cain, and we see Mylon, Scarmiglione. We see some Hildebrand variant dungeon. We see some Omicron-related stuff. And of course, we get the patch artwork, and I have a lot to say about the Pandemonium section of the trailer, because there are some pretty interesting things that look like they might have been happening. 8 meteors on that. Oh, boy. Very, very packed trailer, though, and some great, great music. Some of it nostalgic, some of it brand new, and all that was good. They watched it a second time and did some commentary on it, and, well, we don't need to talk about that all too much. We'll get to it. Yeah, Steps of Faith is in there because it's now a solo instance, so you can see all the scions and whatnot running around. Then they start with a recap, new main scenario quest, new side quest, Tataru, and somehow further Hildebrand adventures. All Yoshi P had to say about Hildebrand is, what have we done? And you know what? Given that this is from Hildebrand right here, most likely, since it's shown around the same time Hildebrand is, I have a feeling, yeah, they're going to have gone a little crazy, a little overboard with that. But hey, it wouldn't be Hildebrand if they didn't. New weapon enhancement quest. So we know that this weapon enhancement quest is actually going to be much more akin to the A Realm Reborn and Heaven's Ward relic quests. It's not going to be like the Eureka or the Bojda ones. So if you're a fan of those old school quests, this will be more at your speed. You'll be able to basically just do activities around the game that you may not have done in a while, or maybe even that you usually do, collecting tomes and whatnot. They said the first step was going to be fairly straightforward, but we don't know if it means like, first step of Bojda straightforward, where it's like an hour-long quest, or if there's going to be some sort of grind step for this first one that's just on the lighter side. We're not 100% sure about that just yet. New tribal quest, the Omicrons. We actually get a look at the hub for that a little bit later. And yeah, we see another little peek right here. We see Troya, the new dungeon, and the new trial, question mark, and question mark, extreme. Well, as we have Mylon as a dungeon boss, we probably have Mylon Z, of course, Scarmiglione as the proper name. I'm still going to assume it's Scarmiglione being the trial boss. I've gone back and forth because they've been keeping it a secret, but I think my first guess was probably the best guess, and trying to go in that whole tinfoil hat road probably isn't going to be what it actually works out to be. New raid tier, Abyssos and Abyssos Savage. Abyssos Savage is 1 week after normal mode. We know about that. They talk a little bit about the delay again. We only delayed Savage this time, and no adjustments were made. We'd like to get your feedback on specific areas that need adjustment. In other words, that with the bonus tomes, with the extra week of preparation, that they acknowledge that it may not feel quite like other tiers. But even, he says he still thinks it's going to be fairly difficult, even with the extra tomes going into week 2. Since you will have a week of tomes, and then you'll be able to get another 450 the week that Savage comes out. So, yeah. During the PD check, that's just the producer-director check, where they actually play through it, we tried to do the first 2 floors within 2 hours. The mechanics were explained to me, but I couldn't remember them all. Who is this person, and what are they holding in their hand? We don't know. Well, it's La Habrea, most likely. I have my own theories about the stuff that's in the trailer, but Yoshi P, listen, I don't really like listening to him when it comes to difficulty on things. We've had some really weird statements about difficulty, even as recently as calling Endsinger a fairly difficult extreme trial, and it was probably one of the easiest extreme trials we've had in quite some time, especially among 0.1 patches. So I try not to pay too much attention to statements like this when Yoshi P doesn't. I'll judge it for myself when I actually get to it. Who knows? Maybe it's like, maybe it's got light rampant. Who knows? Who knows? But I think the weapon will make the DPS checks really easy. Sephiroth, new Unreal. We knew this, of course. Now, here's one where I do agree. Sephiroth was the peak in terms of difficulty of trials. That is a statement I do agree with. But they've tuned it down a little bit, so it won't be as crazy going into the Unreal content. Duty support, you know, we're getting a bunch of dungeons added to that. Snowcloak Keeper, Samal, Airy, and Vault. Dusk Vigil not on there because it's not a main scenario dungeon, so that's still going to be as it was. Steps of Faith is a solo battle now, and Thorn March was revamped. Said it'll be more straightforward than it was before. Not that it was hard before, but straightforward. It'll be a little bit better for the people that don't understand kill the little Moogles first. So we'll see what it actually looks like. And it's only normal mode that's changed, not extreme. Much like with like Ultima in the Praetorium. Or now Porta Decumana, as I recall. And then, you know, there's some screenshots here, you know, the job adjustments for PvE and PvP. Even later, they don't detail much about that. They said that they'll be mostly talked about in the patch notes and a separate post altogether. And knowing their history, we might not even see those in the preliminaries next Friday. We might have to wait till the following Monday when the servers go down. So we'll see. Island Sanctuary will drop in 6.2. You know, we pretty much had figured that after the press site had updated to just say 6.2, but there's him outright saying it. So we'll have that in 11 days. So then difficult to explain variant dungeons. It's okay because they showcase that later. Criterion's also, they showed later in the live letter. Portraits. Now keep in mind that adventure portraits, when we go from the beta version in 6.1 to the full release in 6.2, it's basically going to delete almost all of them. However, if a portrait is linked to an adventure plate or gear, that one will remain intact. So you do get to keep one of them. So good thing I have mine already set because that's the only one I really cared about saving. And then we have, you know, new tombstones, new crafted gear, request repair. We're finally getting it back. It was there in 1.x and they took it away and now it's back finally. The new display for your actions list showing the combo sequence, you know, nothing fancy there. Then, of course, they said that they're doubling the glamour dresser capacity and they're adding a few other things as well. They're starting to do preparations for our 7.0 graphical update. They're doing advanced implementation of optimized graphics processing, alleviates drops in frame rate under heavy GPU load. And they're also going to do dynamic resolution, which makes it so that if your game is struggling and your GPU burden is too high, that the game will automatically adjust your graphics on the fly to make sure you have a stable frame rate. I'm sure there are some limitations to that, but these are some of the systems they're putting in place now ahead of the 7.0 graphics update to make sure that they all work and they're all in place instead of just dumping everything at once. So pay close attention. You'll see the differences. That's a feature you need to enable. It's not automatic as well. Some people, you know, they don't care. Major overhaul for jobs were pushed back till 7.0. We know Dragoon and Astro. They also confirmed that the Dragoon and Astro reworks will actually be more akin to Ninja's 5.1 rework than something like Summoner's 6.0 rework. So kind of what we expected, but even still, the word rework has so many different meanings that I'm glad that they decided to clarify. There will be some minor job adjustments across several different jobs, but they didn't go into any specific detail about any of them, but that they will also explain them in a separate post on the Lodestone alongside the patch notes. English is hard, especially when you've been up since 1:45 in the morning. Now, they did go over their adjustments to critical hit and direct hit rate. So this is specifically an adjustment that they're making to skills that automatically crit or direct hit. So, for example, Warrior with their Infuriate, with, you know, Primal Rend, with Inner Release, those are automatic crit direct hits. So those would fall under this. It's not going to affect you if you just randomly critically or directly hit. So the big thing is that it's fixing their interactiveness with buffs that increase these types of stats. So, for example, you know, Dragoon has Battle Litany, increases critical hit rate. So currently on something like Warrior or Samurai, that loses a lot of value because critical hit rate doesn't do anything when you automatically crit. They're making it so buffs like that interact with skills like I described by just buffing their damage if they can't benefit from the actual crit hit rate. They did say that they would make adjustments to those skills that have automatic crits and direct hits to make sure that they do not get too powerful from this change. I'm of the opinion they just need to get rid of auto crit direct hits. I think it's not healthy for the game or the game design, and this has two potential outcomes. It either they have to weaken the job skills so that this doesn't overpower them enough, that without them those jobs are less desirable, or it's so good that those jobs kind of get forced by like Party Finder meta. you know, those party finders like, oh, we gotta make sure we got Scholar and Bard and Dragoon and Warrior and Samurai, and then like the pool of jobs just starts to feel small. I think it's just better to get rid of auto crit direct hits than it is to try to do stuff like this. I'm just, it gets worse by the patch. I don't feel like this is a band-aid that's gonna work well enough, and I feel like they'll have to revisit it sooner rather than later. Then they had, explanations will be written in the job guides, but the patch notes will link to those as well. Okay. Then PvP adjustments, Hidden Gorge is returning. It's going to feel a little different from before, but it is, you know, we are getting Rival Wings back in some capacity. One of the 2 maps at the very least. PvP Series 2 will begin. They didn't show us the rewards from it, but it's going to work the same as Series 1. It'll be that track where every time you play PvP matches, you get Series EXP, and then you'll earn rewards every time you rank up, whether it be trophy crystals, mounts, minions, gear. We don't know. We don't know what the reward is going to be for Series number 2. If you also haven't claimed Series 1 rewards, you will be able to claim them until the end of Series 2. If you haven't earned them, they haven't been too specific. In previous live letters, they mentioned that we would be able to use trophy crystals on old series rewards sooner or later. But they didn't say if it was something we'd be able to do immediately upon the next series, if it would have a time limit, if it was something that was like down the line to make sure that people who missed it down the line could get it. But they said they wanted to eliminate fear of missing out. So while they didn't elaborate on it in this live letter, expect something of that capacity, whether it be in point 2 or another patch coming later. Now, for PvP, a pretty big overhaul to the way that ranking is done. The big thing with Season 3 is it is now possible to demote between Crystal, Diamond, and Platinum. So if you are Diamond 5, with 0 rising stars and you lose a match, you will go down to Platinum 1 with 2 rising stars. You know, Crystal, you could go down to Diamond 1. And so that whole thing is basically one giant kind of amalgamation of your PvP rank. That's going to make climbing certain ranks a little bit harder, depending on what your win rate is like. If you're on a really bad losing streak, you may fall from like a mid-diamond down to back to Platinum even. So I'm curious to see how people respond to this. But they're doing that because people get to a rank and then they just kind of mess around. Crystal was really guilty of this, where people would get into Crystal and then try to PvP on jobs they had no idea how to play, regardless of the impact that it had on other people in Diamond or in Crystal ranking. And so they're trying to make sure there's a little bit more onus on taking your A game into those ranks. But we'll see if it actually has the desired effect. Without rank decay, it may lead to people getting to a rank and then really just deciding, okay, I'm done. More so than even trying to mess around. But to help with this, your rewards at the end of the season are based on your highest earned rank. So if you get to Crystal and then demote, you'll still get Crystal rewards by the end of the season. So that's like their kind of staying process to try to make sure that you still feel good about what your highest progress point actually is. On top of that, because of the changes, everyone is being demoted to Bronze 3. They will not just be dropping you down 5 risers this time. In light of the demotion feature, all ranked characters will begin Season 3 at Bronze 3 with 0 rising stars. As somebody who is kind of dreading getting demoted from Diamond to Platinum because I couldn't get any Qs during the day, which is primarily when I play, after deciding that the reward structure wasn't worth my effort this season, I'm okay with this. I think it's a little extreme. I don't know why adding demotion means you also have to reset everybody, but it kind of works in my favor, so screw it. But yeah, final rankings will be determined on highest tier or Crystal credit score. So by the way, that means that if at any point in the season you get to number 1 in Crystalline Conflict, but then you start losing, it makes it sound like somebody has to pass you in your Crystal score overall in order to take rank 1 from you. So for people who are competing in the top of the ranking, that's going to be another interesting dynamic to consider, since it says it does take your Crystal credit score into account at the end of the season, or like the highest that you reached. So I mean, that's literally what it says right here. Final rankings will be determined by the highest tier / Crystal credit score achieved during a season. So that's what it sounds like. If you get the highest score and you don't end the season at rank 1, but you still had the highest score that anyone achieved, that's what it sounds like. You would still get number 1 at the end of the season. So that's kind of weird, but we'll see if that... Maybe they'll undo that one. Maybe they'll just do crystal. So, who knows? I can't go into too much detail about matching adjustments. Oh, yeah, they're also making some adjustments to matching. I like how this picture was taken before it was fully in frame. So for matching, dynamic adjustments to matching based on current tier population performed independently of patch release and other maintenance. And also, withdrawal mid-duty or after matching has been completed will result in stricter penalties. This is what they're doing to combat win traders who basically queue the same job and try to get on opposite teams. This is to try and prevent that, so they don't go into any more detail because they don't want to give people any, I guess, hints that could teach them how to abuse the system. And so that's all the information we got, but that's the reason why they're doing that. Pandemonium Abyssos, they just go over the basics that it exists, I suppose. They did show us a little bit inside of it as well. And here's the Glamour Dresser tag that was missed from before. That's fine. It looks like our first boss is Proto Carbuncle. Yeah, that's Carbuncle. Now, if you've seen some iterations of Carbuncle, that's less of a surprise. If you've only played Final Fantasy XIV, that's a big surprise, because that is indeed what Carbuncle has looked like at one point in the franchise. So, very, very fun to see Final Fantasy V's Carbuncle show up as that monstrosity right there. It's gonna catch so many people by surprise. Oh my goodness. Pretty cool introduction to the boss. Just shows a few basic mechanics. It looks like he has Reflect, and he has spells that are either physical or abilities that are physical or magical. And we don't really get to see too much of it, but we get to see briefly, despite Yoshi P trying to kill himself before we see it, that if he casts a magic ability aimed at a Reflect barrier, it'll reflect it in the opposite direction. So it looks like you'll be playing around with a mix of his physical and magical skills to determine what goes through Reflect, what goes past it. Maybe there's Protect as well, so Protect would prevent physical attacks and bounce them back, and maybe they'll have Protect and Reflect at the same time. So I think that concept makes for a good first fight in a raid tier, because it's very likely to be used in just a few ways, given it's the first encounter. But it's one of those things that you can see them going much further with if they ever wanted to. So I have a feeling it's not going to be that bad. And on top of that, the arena, by the way, tell me there isn't a point blank AoE and like wave AoEs. I mean, look at the grates on the ground. You can't tell me that those aren't like AoE proofing markers. They 100%. There's going to be point blank AoE, donut AoE. There's going to be wave AoEs. They're going to alternate. Like, it's just, it's what's going to happen. Let's just accept it for the time being. Even Yoshi P also mentions how the arena is very, very small. And he says that's for a very, very good reason. Yeah, so here's the Reflect barrier. So you can see that's the boss is using a magic ability, and it's on the other side of the Reflect barrier. So when it hits the Reflect barrier, it's going to hit that half of the room. Normally, this ability is actually a 180-degree AoE in front of Carbuncle, so you have to stand behind him. So I would also say that if there was no Reflect up, or if there was, you know, I guess if I don't know, if behind Carbuncle was safe for any reason, you'd still have to be in that half of the arena, like behind his actual location. But that whole half of the room is actually dangerous in this particular case. So I think it was a really good introduction to the first fight. Now, we do have pictures of gear here. These did actually get posted to the special site, so we might want to do a separate video on that. That is not a great picture of Foxclaw, by the way. Why would you do this? Why would you? Although, to be fair, that's kind of my reaction when I look at that armor set. I'm like, yes, yes, yes. Because the armor sets look really, really good. This is the crafted set and crafted weapons. There's the warrior with the warrior axe. Here's the Reaper. That scythe is so good. Reaper armor, Reaper weapon, Bard armor. That armor is oddly chunky for a Bard, especially with the hat. Look at how ridiculous that armor looks with that hat. And I kind of like the very shiny steel look to the bow. And see, now he's really into it. Now Foxclawn's looking right at the Bard stuff. Healer, looks like we have Scholar stuff here. This is the caster set even. It looks like healer gear looking a bit grim. Well, I mean, caster and healer is going to be identical. It's just that this is also crafted gear. Then for tombstone gear, oh no, this is healer, this is caster. Here we go. Yeah, there we go. That makes sense. This is scholar, and this is red mage. There we go. Perfect. Moving on, we have the Tome Gear. That is the best Gunbreaker sword in the game, and you will not change my mind. So that's very, very good. Digging the monk stuff here, the tonfas that we have, and also the armor set itself. Big fan. Then we have the... This is also Tombstone, I believe. That's not the raid gear, because we know what the raid gear looks like. Yeah, this is the Tombstone gear for Ninja. Also looking pretty good. Really like the hood, the headpiece. And then we also have the Tombstone gear for Sage. There you go, with a couple of those. Then we get into the raid gear. And they dialed it up a notch a little bit, because the raid gear is dope. There's a much better picture of some of these on the 6.2 site. But my word, did they go nutso on the Abyssos gear. And from what we can see on the 6.2 site, which I've already seen, but we're not showing here, these rings that I thought were just for special effect might actually be something that occasionally happens as a visual effect, because they're in the in-game screenshot on the 6.2 site. So I thought that was just like, oh, look at this really cool picture that we have. Oh, let's do that. No, that's part of it. And then you got the samurai set. Look at the mask. Look at the hilt. Look at the fire. That's what I'm talking about right there. The mask is top tier right there. That's a big one. So yeah, as a reminder, normal mode has the gear, Savage has dyeable gear, and Savage also has the weapon. So better get to doing Savage. Also, in regards to Savage, the book exchange rate, head, hands, and feet are only going to be 4 books from now on. Only for the new stuff, though. The old sets, they're not going to change the old books. They're just going to do this going forward with the new books. So that's good. This makes getting the gear a little bit easier, I suppose. And then, yeah, Tribal Quest. They show us the Omicron, Tribal Quest, and Ultima Thule real quick. There's a nice little piano remix of Close in the Distance that plays. You can see some of the global citizens. You get to see, this is where the daily quest actually happened. It's off on another island, but you can teleport there very quickly. And yeah, it was nice. I'm looking forward to it. Oh, and then this is the mount. It's a jelly. They officially call it space jellyfish. That's what we're going to call it as well, I suppose. And it's kind of like the chi mount, where it kind of shrinks you down and sticks you inside. But this time you're in space, and you're in the jellyfish, so you're in the space jellyfish. So yeah, looks good. And that was it for the first half. Then they showed us they were playing the starter series that they recently released. And then they came back immediately into Island Sanctuary. This section took a little too long. I kind of wanted them to stop. Not because it was boring, because I plan on doing it, but they just kept showing things that I would have gotten to see and were tutorialized and would have been shown anyway. So it was like I'm going to have to see this again. They're going to walk me through it when I get it. So I kind of wish they just didn't spend so much time on it. But, you know, it was a 3-hour live letter. It was fine. There's a mount, the Mandragora mount, that you can get from it as well. And you will be able to fly, but you will have to unlock flying on the island, from what I recall. I think he cheated to be able to fly immediately. But yeah, the island, quite large. You know, we knew it was going to be very large. We're not getting exploration content, it seems, this expansion. So I'm sure a lot of that asset work went into the island. And it's worth a reminder that according to the schedule that they gave us a few months back for all of Endwalker, this is one of 2 islands. There's a second island we're supposed to get in 0.5. Curious to see if they stick to that plan, or if before 0.5 they decide it's not something that they want to do, or it doesn't make sense for how they want to do it. But I'd hope that the second island is less tropical and has a different vibe to it. But we don't know. That's speculation at this point. He flew around the island a little bit before finally heading to the beach and then walking up. There's some mammoths on the island to guide you through things, and they'll teach you all of the basics. They'll teach you to go and gather. You can make tools, and you can build buildings that have different functions. You know, some of them might give your island a bunch of EXP to level it up, or enable a certain function or automation of different features. But you got to remember, everything on this island is isolated to this island. You're not gathering items that you would gather elsewhere. You're not making items that you would make elsewhere, and none of it takes up inventory space. It all has its own island exclusive inventory. So all the items you gather go into the gathering section. All of the tools that you make, all of that doesn't affect your inventory. The only thing that your inventory will interact with, or that you will take outside of island sanctuary are the mounts or the minions or the glam or the materia that you get from earning scripts. You earned island scripts. Looks like blue, and I'm colorblind, so I won't even try to guess them. I don't even know why I bothered saying blue. And you can use that currency to buy items like the mounts and the minions and whatnot. So you're going to want to level up your island and get these features in order to earn that resource in order to buy the other stuff. Blue and green, there you go. My Twitch chat has me covered on that front. At least I was right the first time and didn't try to guess the second one, because that would have gone very poorly. But other than that, I mean, it's slice of life. You know, you've got the music, you go and you gather, and then you come back, and the mammoths build you a house, and some of the buildings are instantly built, and some of them actually have like a 12-hour time frame where they'll be built. So, you know, they tell you what you need, you go get the materials, you come back, you build it, the mammoths put it together, now you have this on your island. There's a bunch of different looks for the different things, but if you want this more kind of islandy look, you can keep it as well. That's up to you. They make sure you have a few options on that front. And then, of course, you'll be able to plant crops and till them and water them. And here's where they show off the rewards, for example. You know, you have this armor set that's here. We get a few looks at some of the pieces right here with the Hrothgar and the Al Ra with the long boots, and then the long overalls with that. And then you've got the gloves and all of that. And then you've got the shorts, and you've got the backpack and the hat, but not you, Viera. Ha ha ha. So yeah, they got a few different things going on here. And then you can see here that looks like there's like 3 mounts, a minion, some orchestrions, and then as they scroll down, we also see that there's materia available there as well. So, bunch of stuff. And then they kept going, you know, here's the crops. You can plant the crops. You can then water the crops. If you don't water the crops, they won't grow. But if it rains on the island, your crops will be watered. Anyone who played Animal Crossing, that should be familiar. And then you can collect the crops, and with the crops you can craft, you know, you can make recipes, and then you can sell the recipes through this like automated NPC system that then generates scripts for you that you can then use to buy the rewards, etc., etc., etc. You can go catch animals on the island with a net. It's like Ape Escape style. And there's apparently rare variants of the creatures on the island. So if you're like me and you like shiny hunting and Pokemon, you may be spending more time here than you initially intended. Just saying. Gonna be my blessing and my curse. Oh boy. Yeah. So the big thing also is with this menu in the top left, there's a bunch of different modes you have to go through. You have to set it to capture mode, or set it to planting mode, or set it to watering mode. It's kind of cumbersome, and I'm not really surprised at the same time. Also, depending on, you know, what you're trying to do, you need to make sure you have feed for the livestock, or a net to actually capture them, or a seed there. So again, that all comes from your gathering log that's specific to the island. It's all this very compact system, but there's a lot of individual menus that go into it, or menu decisions that go into it. So I suspect some people will probably complain about it being a bit too clunky. And I mean, I'll probably be in that boat too. We'll see. Maybe when I actually get my hands on it, it'll be quick to navigate, quick to get through. But that whole extra menu, I just think it'll be just a little one of the downsides. I don't think it'll hamper the whole content, but I think it'll be like, you know, that's kind of annoying after you've done it for X number of hours. You can also give your livestock nicknames. So I need to get some cats and name them Aloha and Ivy. That's all that needs to happen there. What else do we have? What else do they go over? You know, making more buildings, you know, releasing your minions. You can choose your minions to just kind of wander around, and where they wander around. You can have up to 40 minions wandering around the island, so that's always fun. They said that it's like, okay, we don't have any more time. That's it. We just don't have any more time. But it's coming in patch 6.2. We plan on adding new features around every 2 major patches. Now, our look again at the schedule that we got before 6.1 even released stated that we would be getting an update to it in 6.4, and that we'd be getting a new island in 6.5. So I'd assume maybe the new island just doesn't have any new features, but it's starting over, new assets, new leveling. But we are looking at updates for this every other major patch. So looking at even numbered patches, usually. So keep that in mind if you're ever wondering about new island sanctuary stuff. But that's, of course, always subject to change. Also, this content's not a race, so enjoy it at your own pace. That rhymes. That's code for saying I'm going to do this for 16 hours a day. So I'm just saying that's what it's code for. I don't know if anyone else agrees. You also need to beat Endwalker's base story, the 6.0 story, in order to do Island Sanctuary. So, you know, you're not going to be doing it on a new character or anything like that. Then they did a brief recap about, you know, selling the handicrafts like the food I mentioned, building facilities, landscaping terrain, minions, rewards, exploring, all that fun stuff. Then they went over variant dungeons. Now, variant dungeons are a new type of dungeon that are coming out, and they were previously known as Criterion dungeons, and it's basically a really casual dungeon with multiple different paths, routes, and stories, depending on the decisions you make inside of the dungeon itself. It has no role restrictions. You can even change jobs when you're inside, and you can even solo it if you want. It dynamically changes the difficulty of the enemies depending on whether you have 1 player or 4 players. So, they do show it a little bit in-game. Our first variant dungeon, the Sildian Subterrane, has us escorting Nanamo through it for reasons that are unknown, mostly because I couldn't understand what she was saying in Japanese. But like he says, she's going to be talking a lot, and that's expected because variant dungeons are like the story mode. There's also going to be actions that are exclusive to variant mode, which will allow you to heal or use rampart or res people, because it's completely open to all roles and jobs and whatnot. So they want to make sure you have exactly the tools to complete it. It's casual content. It's meant to be enjoyed casually, mostly for the story. You know, here are all the actions that you have. And then when you queue into the new menu, you can see this is variant dungeon number 1. We have Nanamo there. These diamonds down here designate the number of total stories that you've experienced. So at minimum, you're looking at 12 different outcomes for this dungeon. So at minimum, 12 different runs. It also lets you change what bonus actions you have. Here they have Rampart and Cure. And it even gives tomes, which, given that these only have 2 bosses, might make for a pretty decent tome experience. I'm kind of curious to see how that ends up working out. This is also the UI you see after clearing it the first time. It'll look a little bit different when you are just doing it for the first time. It can enter solo, Sildian Subterrane. It just shows a few basic things. You can vote on the routes to take by just standing on arrows whenever you're given a choice. So he decides to just follow Nanamo here. They go through and kill a few enemies and showcase some of the variant skills. Nothing major. There are treasure boxes, but this guy here, Yoshi P, walked right past them and laughed about it. He said, "Oh, people wanted me to open them." And Foxconn's like, "You can do that yourself when it comes out." I'm like, son of a... Look, right there. There it is. That's messed up, man. He's like, "Oh, I'm not going to tell you what's in the... We don't want to tell you. We don't want you to know." Okay. So yeah, 1 route will have 2 bosses. They do show a bit of the first boss. Now the big thing apparently is in the variant dungeon, the bosses are exactly the same models. So the first boss is always this Gigas looking monster, and the second boss, we actually know what the second boss looks like. It's like this princess armadillo looking thing, which I have my own theories about. And we do also see that second boss in the Criterion dungeon later. It'll always be those 2 bosses, but their mechanics will change depending on the route that you actually took. So, however the story is unfolding. Yoshi P even mentioned that, like, there might come a point where you're given an opportunity to, like, maybe flip a switch. But if you flip the switch, it maybe adds something to the boss fight that you didn't want. Or if you don't touch it, it might make the boss fight easier, or vice versa. So it's going to depend on the route that you take to really adjust the dynamic nature of the bosses themselves. This boss was pretty simple. Basically did some room-wide AoEs, a tank buster, a conal. And there were these barrels. Some of them were point-blank explosions. Some of them were donut explosions. And the boss could actually shift them around with another attack. So, really, really basic stuff. But if you die, you will, you know, if you get hit by the wrong thing, this will actually still kill you, even in something as easy as the variant dungeon. So, take your time, though. It doesn't really matter. You wipe, go back to the beginning, run through again, and you'll be A-okay. Mount reward, they do show us. Now, this is that princess armadillo that has a weird, almost fat cat looking face to it. It's got a little crown. I think it's maybe an old Sildian princess that was turned into this creature. And there's actually apparently even a lore reason why it can fly, which is not something they do because they're just like, wind ether 99% of the time. Now, Criterion dungeons are high level content, meaning they're more difficult. The normal mode of Criterion is like an extreme difficulty of variant, and then Criterion Savage is a savage difficulty of that same thing. There's no NPCs to accompany you. There's no route choices. It's 1 route, 1 challenge, 1 set of bosses from beginning to end. Now, in case you missed it, this is called another dungeon, so it's Sildian Subterrane, so it's another Sildian Subterrane, and then the Savage difficulty on top of that. The Criterion normal mode will be matched up to a party of 4, 1 tank, 1 healer, 1 melee, and 1 ranged DPS, either physical or magical. There are no variant actions other than variant raise 2. Everybody's given a raise action so that they can raise 1 party member in case they die. Your variant raises are apparently recharged when you reach certain points inside of the dungeon, so you can get more back in order to progress more smoothly. But if you wipe on normal mode, it just sends you back to the beginning, but none of the monsters respawn. So it doesn't really matter that much. It's just a nice thing to have, the extra raise, I guess. If nobody dies, for example, if somebody does die and then you use the raise, then you clear out the trash, you get another one for the boss. But I guess, I don't know, it almost sounds like you should just wipe instead and then just keep the raises that you had since it doesn't reset everything. I don't know. But you also can't use your normal raise. That's the big thing. So, you know, Red Mage cannot raise spam and get you out of this. They all have the 1 variant raise, and that is all they will have. In Savage, there are no ways to resurrect. Once you die, you're gone for good. Nobody can resurrect you. And if all of your party dies, then you'll have to start the whole dungeon over from scratch. Everything will respawn. You'll have to redo it all over again. Very similar to the way that Delubrum Reginae Savage worked, except in Delubrum Reginae, you had to exit the dungeon and re-enter. Here, it's almost like the whole dungeon is one giant trial with its own set of enrage. Heck, it even has an enrage. Enemies become much stronger if not defeated quickly enough. The dungeon itself even has its own enrage. So essentially treat it as one giant Savage encounter all the way through. So you don't want to take your time, but you gotta learn a little bit first time you go through. It's gonna be a fun time. There's a special dungeon finder specifically for Criterion alongside variant. It's just at the top you have the Criterion variant instead of the, well, variant, I suppose. And then it just has the basic rules that I just explained to you. You know, I can enter solo because of our developer commands, aka he's a dirty cheater. So that's all it is. Now, it had a completely different music. It had a completely different starting point. It showed us rooms we hadn't seen in the previous one. So instead of starting in that room with Nanamo, you start right here. There's a couple of patrolling mobs and a few mob packs that go back and forth. And so we don't see what they do or how much damage they do. He goes into God mode. He one-shots them with a kill command. So Yoshi P just trying to keep secrets from us. But he just shows us the layout real quick. You know, you can see the mobs hiding over here. And, you know, we don't get to see any of their attacks, but I'm sure we could probably figure some out based on the mob types that are there. And then he goes, and so this is apparently the second boss inside of the variant dungeon. Here it's the first boss. And obviously the fight's going to be a bit harder than it was before. Very big arena. We don't get to see too much here, and I'll have to watch it again to see if I can pick apart any sort of specific detail. But the big gimmick here seems to be that the tail has 2 different colors. It can be this like yellowish gold or that like bluish purple-ish thing. I don't know. It's colors. I shouldn't be saying anything. And it can sweep the arena and change the colors of these brooms as they appear to be. Now, whether or not they're used to determine where the AoEs will hit, or if that's the action of the enemy, is not made abundantly clear, but he does drop this boss's HP by about 5% in the time that he has God mode in here and he's messing around. So he did say the fights will be shorter than 8-man fights. They won't be like super, super long encounters, probably because the dungeon itself, you're ticking against the enrage the entire time. So I'm curious to see how that will end up working out in the long run. Well, at least for Savage. For Extreme, I guess it doesn't really matter. But yeah, we just see he just fights it a few different spots, and he runs around, and nothing too fancy. He doesn't want to show anything more, I understand. I'm looking forward to it when it comes out. New housing items. We have a straw bed right next to the light coming in from the window. We have some banners so you can simp your favorite Scion. Can't wait to see the number of Graha shrines that come out of that. And you got some camping stuff for outside. You know, just nice little camping stuff. Then they went into the announcement section, so they were basically almost done. The Eorzean Symphony is going to be returning to Japan in December on the 17th and the 18th. And if you pay about 4,000 yen extra, which is about like 27 bucks US, you can get this plastic Elpis light up rose along with it. Nothing fancy, he just holds it. As you can see, it's simple, you know, plastic over a light bulb that you're paying like 30 bucks for, but you know, some people like that. It's a nice thing. Only people who go are going to have it. So a lot of people are definitely willing to shell out the extra money for what is basically a collector's item. Let's see. too. Oh, Final Fantasy XIV is going to be at PAX Australia, Friday, October 7th through Sunday, October 9th. More details on the Lodestone later. And then this is weird. So there's a place outside of London, I believe, called the Marachute Farm, and they're just going to be live streaming a farm for 4 days, like as like a teaser for Island Sanctuary, I guess. It's literally a live stream of a farm for 4 days. That's what it is. That's you know what though? That was gonna be kind of relaxing. You ever sometimes you catch animals doing weird stuff. So might be fun. Patch out reading for patch 6.2 when the servers go down on the 22nd. Oh yeah, I completely skipped over the fact. I was going through everything. Yeah, the patch is August 23rd, by the way. We skipped by that slide pretty quick because it was mixed in with all of the trailer slides and everything. But yeah, no, the patch is August 23rd. We all guessed it. I mean, if you've been around long enough, that's what you suspected anyway, which does indeed mean the raid will be August 30th. So bear that in mind. The 14-hour broadcast they normally do for the anniversary is going to be taking place in October this year, October 8th. October 14th. As a matter, wait, 8th, 14th broadcast. No, it is in October. It's 10/8. Yes, it's October 8th. Sorry, I saw the numbers and my brain turned off. Yeah. No, October 8th is when that's going to happen. There's this new jacket available for pre-order. https://sqex.to/insert coin. It's a Paladin jacket. Looks cool. I'm not going to get it, but their website's broken right now, but go nuts if you can get it to work. That's a medium size, the overseas medium size. If it was Japanese, he'd probably get a small. So this is the Japanese, this is the overseas medium that he's wearing, not the Japanese medium. So that should give you some indication of the size. Yoshi P is, he's not that tall. He's like, him and I are about the same height. So I think he's like 5'7", 5'8", with a narrow build. So that should give you a decent idea of sizing your jacket. I'm not sure if Insert Coin has a sizing assistant on their site. Hopefully they do. But yeah, there's that. Unending Journey digital version in Japan is being released for all 3 volumes, 49.50 yen, and that's available right now. In Japan also, 50% off the complete edition. That's on sale over there. But yeah, that's just for Japan. Square Enix eStore, PlayStation, and Amazon. But that's over there. And they're hiring, by the way. If you want to be a scenario designer, game content designer, or a live system designer, and you speak Japanese, QR code. Good luck. Yoshi P once told me I should just learn Japanese. And so I think it's because of that. He's like, hey, you want to work here? I'll be like, maybe. Okay, go learn Japanese. I was like, yeah, that's probably not going to happen. Maybe one day. Maybe hit up Duolingo, make it happen. And then also they're looking for Japanese to English translators and German to English translators. So if you have that specialty, there you go. You got 2 more QR codes right there. As a reminder, they did have announcements for seasonal rewards for Crystalline Conflict and the schedule for the expansion of the NA data center being delayed. They just reminded us of that. And then they just said there are no plans to stream the Symphony concert. And then they spent about 6 minutes watching Castle in the Sky, not on stream, like on like a tablet, and just like holding hands and commenting about it, which was a weird way to end the live letter. It's like they forgot they were doing it, but that's what they were doing for the last like 6 minutes. See? Holding hands. And they're like, Basu, Basu. That's all they were saying over and over again. Oh man. Anyway, yeah. That's all there is to it. Yeah, apparently, yeah, we had a previous stream a few years ago that overlapped with Laputa. Having another stream today that overlapped with it again is giving me some deep thoughts. I hope there will be another stream in the future that overlaps with Why do you want to keep doing that, Laputa? Why do you want to keep doing that? Oh, man. It is what it is. And then that was it. So, a couple of notes here at the end. These were added after we started recording. Patch note reading suggests maintenance will not be 24 hours, but they haven't said anything official. Okay, so just to avoid confusion, the 71st live letter did say Island Sanctuary would be added in 6.25, but today they officially confirmed it will be coming a little bit earlier. So it wasn't just, in fact, they even linked to a source here, which is good because that really surprised a lot of us. They did say 0.25 at first, and then they said, never mind, it's available earlier. So August 23rd, Island Sanctuary. We'll have our new trial. We'll have our new dungeon. We'll have our new MSQ. Also, another thing I noticed, actually, now that we're talking about that, I guess maybe I could look at the site, but let me jump to this again. Scroll down a little bit. Yeah, see, August 23rd. There you go. We skipped right by that earlier, even though it's like I expect everyone to know. Tataru's Grand Endeavor continues. Doesn't have a patch number next to it. Is that in 0.2? That would be weird considering it was in 0.25 last time, but it also doesn't say. Maybe it's because they don't know when it's released. Is it actually coming out in 0.2? It was in the trailer. Yeah, so it was in the trailer last time too. That doesn't mean anything. Okay. Well, you know, that's there early too. Weird. We're just getting some things early this time. I ain't complaining. Tribal Quest still ain't till 6.25 anyway, so it is what it is. So, yeah, there's another little confirmation, another little side quest for us to depart upon while we wait and do PvP for a week to try to get out of Bronze Hell. Yay. Anyway, with that, that's going to cover my overview of the Letter from the Producer Live, number 72. Overall, really solid stuff that you should also definitely watch it back if you haven't, so you can see the Criterion and the variant dungeons firsthand, so you can see the Omicron base and hear the music for yourself. Definitely recommend giving those a look-see if you have the time to do so. With that, though, I have to watch the English trailer, I have to analyze the English trailer, and I have to get working on getting this stuff onto YouTube, and then I have State of the Realm. And don't forget, I'm also on Duty Commence at 3 p.m. with Sly. We're going to be doing a State of the Realm X Final Fantasy XIV collaboration over there. So I'm excited. All right, with that, I'm going to get to work. So thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you all in the next YouTube video. Twitch, we still got a few hours to go. But on YouTube, I'll see you next time. Until then.